This is the Louisiana Hometown Network, bringing you public information, coverage of the monthly meeting of the Louisiana Board of Regents for Higher Education and the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education, also known as BESE.
I'm honored to be here. I'm honored to be here with so many public officials. I'm not going to start naming them. But I'm here with senators and representatives and former representatives and sheriffs and mayors, and I'm just so honored to be here. What I thought I'd do is spend a few minutes, I'm going to be mindful of the clock, talking about how the state of Louisiana, or at least state government, got into the mess, and that's what it is, the mess that it's in. And then I'll talk for a few seconds about what I think we ought to do to get out of this mess without destroying Nichols and LSU and Southern and our health care delivery system. And it can be done. And then I'm going to leave plenty of time for questions. How did we get in this mess? They try to make it complicated. But there are really only two rules for budgeting in state government. Same rules you follow in your businesses, same rules you follow in your families. Number one, don't spend more money than you take in. Duh. And number two, when you do spend money, spend it on things you really need, not things that you just want. For 7 years, the state of Louisiana has been violating both of those rules. That's just a fact. And it gives me no pleasure whatsoever to have to say that. Rule number one, we've been spending more money than we take in. Look at what we've done. We've raided, instead of living within our means, we've raided all $800 million, almost $1 billion we had set aside in a savings account to pay health care for the elderly. It's called the Medicaid Trust Fund for the Elderly. When we set it up, the principal was supposed to be left alone. And I would invest the money, which would generate interest earnings and stock dividends and capital gains, and that money would be used to provide health care for our elderly. They spent every single dime. Then they went in to the money we had to set aside to pay health insurance claims for state employees and for retirees. Now this was their money, regardless of whether you think state employees or retirees get too big a deal or get too good of a deal or not. This was their money. It had been set aside to pay for their claims, because the state provides health insurance for its employees just like you provide health insurance for your employees. State went in and took $400 million, dumped it in the operating budget. On top of that, the state said, well, we don't want to make the hard decisions. We need some cash around here. So let's start holding tax amnesties. It seems like we hold a tax amnesty now every other Thursday. I hate them. Doesn't mean you should never do one if you want to clean up your books of some old accounts, but tax amnesties are inherently unfair because you're rewarding people for violating the law, and you're punishing people who do pay their taxes in the right amount and on time. And all you do when you do a tax amnesty is borrow money against yourself. It's a gimmick. It's smoke. It's mirrors. We've done 5 of them. And on top of that, to make things even worse, I know you've heard that the state of Louisiana didn't take any of President Obama's stimulus money. That's not true. We took $3 billion cash and dumped it in the operating budget and created new programs and grew state government, knowing full well that that money was going to grow out, but the programs that it was paying for would continue on. Because President Reagan was right. The only way to achieve eternal life on this earth is to become a government program. Once you create them, You can't get rid of them. They're like stray dogs, okay? Feed them once, you got a friend for life, wanting more and more and more and more. Now you say, Kennedy, how can the state constitution requires a balanced budget? How can you have an unbalanced budget? Here's how you do it. You pretend it's balanced on paper. Let me give you an example, in a real life example. Let's suppose that in my family I've got not too far from the truth, I've got a $70,000 income and a $70,000 budget. I come home one night, this actually happened about 10 years ago, and Becky says, John, Preston needs braces. Okay. I've got to figure out how to pay $4,000 for braces. This is what I did, and it's what you would do, and you'd do in your business. I said, okay, let's all get together here. Guys, we're not going to Disney World this summer. We're going to Grand Isle because Preston needs braces. And, of course, everybody's mad and fussing, but say, that's just the way it is. Okay? We've got to live within our means here. And so Preston gets his braces. State government, I can tell you what it would do and what it's done the last 7 years. They go to Grand Isle, they go to Disney World, and they order braces in 3 different colors. Let me give you another real-life example of how we've lived with an unbalanced budget, even though it's balanced on paper. Let's suppose at the end of the year, December, I look down and I've taken in $70,000 in my family's budget, but I've spent $74,000. I'm out of balance $4,000. But I don't want Becky to know, so I don't tell her. This is what I do. I go in my son's college savings account, and I take $10,000 and I put it in my checking account. And I say, look, honey, we had a $6,000 surplus. And I do it again the next year. And the next year, and all of a sudden there's no money left in Preston's college savings account. But that's okay. I'm still going to spend more money than I take in. I go get a credit card, and I borrow against the credit card. Well, sooner or later the credit card company cuts me off. That's okay. I go get another one. Now, I can do that for 4 or 5 years. But at some point, the music is going to stop. And the music has stopped. Our budget year begins July 1. We go from the end of June to the end of June. So when the legislature meets this spring to start debating the budget, they're talking about a budget that will begin July 1st. We will have $25 billion to spend. That's our cash flow next year. $25 billion. When Governor Blanco was governor, the budget was only $19 billion. When Governor Foster was governor, the budget was $12 billion. We've gone from a $12 billion budget to a $19 billion budget to a $25 billion budget over a period of time when we haven't added people. We've actually lost a congressional seat, and inflation's under 2%. Let me say that again. We've gone from a $12 billion budget to a $19 billion budget to a $25 billion budget. Unless you went to the University of Alabama, you can see that direction is up. Okay? But every year, you say, well, how can you do that? You've got more money than you've ever had in the history of the state since 1812, since you became a state adjusted for inflation. Doesn't matter how much you have. If you spend more than you take in, you're going to run a deficit. The second rule, when you do spend money, spend it on things you need, not things you just want. We violated that rule as well. You know, I complain about, I'll give you a couple of examples. Right now, as we're speaking, our Department of Children and Family Services is building a new website with $140 million of your money, with 4 out-of-state consultants. $140 million. And the purpose of that new website is to make it easier for people to apply for food stamps. Now, I want to be very clear here. I'm not for taking food stamps away from people in need. I'm not. I am in favor of having fewer people need food stamps. And let me assure you, our fellow citizens are on food stamps need a lot of things. But on their top 10 hit parade list is not a new website. People on food stamps need help getting a job, or if they have one, they need help getting a better job. As far as I'm concerned, we took that $140 million and threw it in the dirt. Go ask the president if Nicholls State University could use $140 million now, or LSU, or Southern, or UNO. We've talked about consulting contracts before. Because the governor opposed it, the legislature's never had the guts to do anything about it. I hope this time is different. These are the consulting contracts for one department of state government, just one. There are 5,499 consultants, the vast majority of whom from out of state. $615 million of your money. And this isn't just, these aren't the contracts, this is a listing of the contracts. 5,499. And that's a problem all throughout state government. We have a consulting contract right now. We're paying, I don't know the gentleman, we're paying him $57,000 a year. His job is to drive around Rapides Parish and encourage Hispanic citizens to wear their seat belts. I don't know what happens if he run across as somebody of a different ethnic background. I guess it's okay for them not to wear the seat belts. That's not a priority as far as I'm concerned. It's just not. You know, we talk about roads. We don't have enough money for roads. Give them truth serum down at the state capitol building and let them go into a secret meeting. They're going to vote to raise your gasoline taxes, I can tell you. Well, if you check, you'll find out that in our building budget, we spend less than half of our money on roads. If roads are such a high priority, why aren't we spending our money on roads? You know why? Because we're spending on other stuff. I'll give you a couple of examples. These are real-life examples of where your money has gone. We spent $5 million to build splash pools at a state park. We spent $400,000 to build $140,000 to build a fence around a private subdivision in New Orleans East called Kingwood Subdivision. Imagine what would happen if every private subdivision in Louisiana wanted their private fence too. We built a walking bike path on Claiborne Avenue for $1.4 million. We converted a gym to a community center in Heflin for $150,000. We built the Multicultural Tourism Commission, new museum, $305,000. We spent $400,000 renovating the headquarters of the Junior League in New Orleans. I'm not against the Junior League. I've gotten to know them real well. I've heard from every one of them. But let me tell you something. I checked. The Junior League had a budget last year of $1.3 million, and they've got an endowment, a savings account of $3 million. What in heaven's name are we spending when we need roads and universities and health care? Why are we spending $500,000 of your dollars to renovate their headquarters? That's what I mean when I say we're spending money on things that aren't our priorities. Now, I understand politics. I've been in it for a while. I get it. But folks, I understand patronage. But folks, we've got enough money to do everything we need to do. We can be number one in the South in higher education. We can be number one in the South in health care. We could be number one in the South in roads. But we can't be number one in the South in those things and number one in the South in political patronage, because we just don't have enough money. I'll be glad to talk a little bit in questions and answers about what we ought to do about it. Let me just tell you my opinion. If I were king for a day, and I'm not, but if I were king for a day, I would ask our legislature very respectfully but firmly to just not talk about taxes. I don't want to hear the word tax come off their lips. Let's spend the legislative session talking about spending. Let's spend the legislative session talking about the fact that right now, as you and I are having lunch, you are paying for someone to take a $700 ambulance ride to an emergency room to be treated for acne or to get a pregnancy test. And don't tell me the law requires it, because I've checked the law and talked to lawyers a lot smarter than me. Last year we had 900,000 visits to emergency rooms for non-emergencies. Other states are steering those people into private clinics. It'll cost you $750 to give a pregnancy test in an emergency room, but only $50 in a private clinic. We could save hundreds of millions of dollars in our Medicaid program. That's just one example. Look, I'm really proud of Louisiana. Yeah, we got some problems, folks. We don't have a single solitary problem that can't be solved with some political courage. You've heard me say this before, but our greatest strength in Louisiana is our people. I've never met people like the people of my state. You know, they're hardworking, they're God-fearing, they're fun-loving. We are next door to Texas. I love Texas. Get a lot of good publicity. God bless them, they deserve it. They're 5.5 times bigger than we are. We're 10.5 times more interesting than they are. And the reason is our people. It's true. I think this state is worth fighting for, and I'm going to keep fighting for it. We won't win every fight, but by God, we ought to refuse to be beaten. I'm very proud of my state, and I hope you leave here today as proud of Louisiana as I am. What we really need is a state government in Baton Rouge that is good as the people in Louisiana, and then we'll be okay. Thanks again for having me. We can talk about anything I've talked about or anything you want to talk about. My message here today is that we've got a spending problem in state government. It's just very simple. We've got a $25 billion budget. It was only $19 billion under Governor Blanco, $12 billion under Governor Foster. We've got more money we've ever had adjusted for inflation and population, but we're still running deficits, and the reason's pretty simple. We're spending more than we take in, and not only are we spending more than we take in, when we do spend the money that we have, we spend it on things that politicians just want, not things we need. We say higher education is a priority, but they get the short end of the stick. Why don't we give them the long end of the stick? If we say education is a priority, and it should be as far as I'm concerned, then that's what we ought to fund first. Same thing for roads, same thing for health care, coastal restoration. What I think we need to do, I'm not saying we don't need to take a look at our tax code. You always need to look at your tax code to make sure it's fair. And what your goal ought to be to broaden your base so you can lower the rate, so people can pay less. Everybody pays their fair share, but everybody pays less. But really, what we really need to do, it seems to me, to get out of this hole is to concentrate on spending. There are things we can do that will not impact quality of service to make government more efficient, and that's what I'm advising the legislature to do.
Do you have a specific list of recommendations for the legislature in the session?
This is what I do. Before I even talked about revenue, I'd talk about spending. I'd cut 19 of the 19,000 consulting contracts. I'd cut 10%. And the ones that are left, I'd demand a 5% reduction, just right across the board. We got 19,000 consultants. We don't need all of them. I'd cut 10%, and those that are left, make them reduce their contracts by 5%. That would save hundreds of millions of dollars. Number two, 3% of all of our 1.4 million Medicaid patients in Louisiana are spending 43% of the money. I believe I'd find out who those 3% are. Other states had the same demographics. They aggressively manage those 3%. Some of that 3% is fraud. Some of it is just people who are really sick. Other states are aggressively, they're assigning doctors and healthcare professionals directly to those very sick patients to monitor their care so they don't go to the emergency room every other day. Number 3, I would cut down the use of emergency rooms for non-emergencies. Taxpayers shouldn't have to pay $700 to an ambulance company to transport a patient to an emergency room to be treated for acne or to get a pregnancy test. Under Medicaid, we'll provide that service for free, but in a private clinic. It costs 5 times more to do it in an emergency room. Number 4, we've got too many generals in state government, not enough foot soldiers. Our legislative auditor did a report, found that 22% of all of our managers in the classified service in state government manage 1 employee. I mean, come on. Nobody could do that in the private sector and not go broke. So there's some things we can do to make things more efficient, and that's what we ought to do first. And after we do that, I think we'll find that we'll be able to save enough money to lift up our universities and to leave our healthcare system intact.
What about spending for road construction?
Well, the problem we have with road construction is that in our building budget, we have an operating budget, which we talk about most of the time, but we also have a building budget. We say roads are our highest priority, but we spend less than half of our money in our building budget on roads. What I'd like to see us do, I tried it a few years ago and couldn't get the bill passed. Let's pass a bill that says for the next 3 years we're going to spend 70% of the money in our building budget on roads. We'd get some roads built. But we're spending less than half on roads, and they waste too much of it. I mean, they've agreed to build a private fence around a subdivision, a private subdivision in New Orleans East. Somebody taking care of their politics. What if every subdivision in Louisiana wanted the state to build a fence around their subdivision? We spent $500,000 renovating the headquarters of the Junior League in New Orleans. We build bike paths. We build museums. We convert local gymnasiums into town halls. All those are nice things to do. Don't misunderstand me. But they're not roads. And if we need roads the most, and we do, that's where you ought to spend your money first.
What about the proposal to sell the remaining portion of the tobacco settlement?
I'm not adverse to sitting down and talking about it, but that's not why the administration wants to sell. They don't want to sell it because it's in the best interest of taxpayers. They don't want to sell it because it's in the best interest of the TOPS program to which the money's dedicated. They want to sell it to get their hands on $750 million cash to spend. And once it's spent, it's gone. Just like they spent all $800 million in the trust fund we had set aside for health care for the elderly. Just like they took $400 million out of the savings account set aside to pay health claims for our retirees. They want that $750 million to spend. Now, if they want to talk about putting it in a trust fund and protecting it, I'm glad to talk. But that's not what they want to do. They just want to spend this money, as much of it as they can. It's like an addiction. It's like a junkie selling his television or his iPad to get money for one more fix. You're not going to solve your addiction until you face it.
Representative Lance Harris has a bill dealing with taxpayer waste. Tell us a little bit about that and what your opinion is.
Lance and I have a bill that's going to help our universities, I think. We get in every year hundreds of millions of dollars in federal grants. That money goes to departments, and they go out and hire a consultant to spend the money. We want to prohibit them from hiring that consultant until they offer the money first to our universities. Our universities are the greatest reservoirs of expertise in this state. If we get $20 million, for example, to provide after-school tutoring, I want to offer that first to the schools of education at our universities. It'll help the universities. The students can get academic credit. They can do the after-school tutoring. It'll be transparent. We'll get value for the dollar. It'll be good for the taxpayers. It'll be good for the universities. We don't need to go hire some out-of-state consultant from California to spend that money because they're so-called experts when we've got the experts already here at LSU and at Southern and at Louisiana Tech and UL and our other fine schools.
In conclusion, legislative session goes through June. What are the key priorities as far as you're concerned?
Well, let me talk just a second about what the biggest problem is, and what's dividing our state. Our state's not being divided by Republican versus Democrat, or black versus white, or rich versus poor, or North Louisiana versus South Louisiana. To me, the problem in Louisiana is the problem in America. Our state, like our country, is divided between the moochers and the producers. And let me tell you what I mean by that. Over here you got the moochers. You've got undeserving people, not all of them, but undeserving people at the very top with political connections getting bailouts. And you got undeserving people at the bottom getting handouts. They're the moochers. And over here are the producers, the middle-class taxpayers who get the bill for the people at the top getting bailouts and the people at the bottom getting the handouts who don't deserve them. And the middle class is fed up because they don't have any more money to give money to the people at the top and the people at the bottom. The people who get special treatment and the people who are on social programs. They don't have any more money because their insurance has gone up. Their wages have not gone up. The tuition to educate their children has gone up. They need help, okay? They need government to live within its means. They don't need to be asked to pay more taxes.
Today we're announcing that the Stream family is committing to a $1 million commitment to the National Hurricane Museum and Science Center. The family's been committed for several years with a lot of time and effort and some smaller contributions. The main thing that's motivated us is that, for one thing, this facility promises to save lives. For another thing, it will have, we believe, a huge positive economic impact, and it will also impact the lives of those educated by it. And honestly, we've been humbled by the involvement and the investment of time and capital from others, be it corporations or public bodies, scientists, researchers. And also we want to send a message and motivate others, because certainly individuals are going to really close the gap on making sure that this facility happens. So contributions, large and small, from individuals are going to be a big part of that.
How exactly is this museum going to benefit people?
Well, for one thing, it's going to educate them. It's going to educate them about how to better prepare for, respond to, be resilient from, frankly, natural disasters. It's going to pull from the past so that we're not destined to repeat it in the future. It's going to bring together the best minds in the science and research around predicting weather events. Again, making us stronger and harder on our coastlines, better able to prepare our assets, and again, more capable of being prepared for these kind of devastating weather events.
To those that may be considering donations, what message would you tell them right now?
Well, now's the time is what I would tell them if they're considering making contributions. It's been very humbling to be involved with the National Hurricane Museum and Science Center. We have $40 million in capital commitments at this point, some wonderful partnerships with great researchers and agencies from around the country, with educators, and the fact is there's still a gap, and I think the clock is ticking. We're not going to probably have the opportunity to work on this for years and years. The time is now. We need to close that gap. I've been involved since the time that basically two concepts merged into what is the present day National Hurricane Museum and Science Center. Some great folks originated the concept. They did a lot of great work, federally funded research dollars and proof of concept dollars that really kind of pulled the whole concept together. I was asked to come in and chair the effort and help try and get it to completion, and ultimately hopefully reach success with the concept.
And is there anything else you'd like to add?
Well, I would just add that the time is now. This is an enormously unique opportunity for a world-class facility that has established itself already as the hub and a national network of great intellectual capital, human capital, with a tremendous amount of capability to change people's lives for the better and to save lives. The time's now, our clock is ticking, and this $1 million commitment from the Stream family is meant to show that that we want to take a part in this action right now, and we're encouraging others to do the same.
And where can people get more information?
Always on our website, www.nhcm.org. NHMSC.com, which is National Hurricane Museum and Science Center, of course, NHMSC.com.
The first weekend in May is going to be our Sunset Urban Garden Festival, our 19th annual one. Last year we had a banner year. It was our best festival ever, and this year we're hoping to top our attendance of 3,000.
We've had 19 beautiful years. We hope this will be a beautiful year. It's just overwhelming. The people that come out, the vendors. We have 80 vendors and possibly more. We have some yard art. We have herbs. We have flowers, plants. Any kind of flower you want, any kind of herb you want, we have it.
How far do people come for the Sunset Urban Garden Festival?
This year I have 2 from Michigan, Texas, Mississippi, Alabama.
We have all the yard art, the different flowers, lots of herb vendors, and people come from far and near. And this year we are going to have a bang up food court. We have Chef Gregory's food truck's going to be here. He was here last year. The bus stop, they were here last year, but we have a new addition. It's called Mad Luann's. They're all going to be serving food. There will be no duplications. We're going to have fresh squeezed lemonade with funnel cakes. We're going to have homemade sweets donated by the Garden Club members, and we usually do real good with that because people love homemade baked goods. We also have an information booth where this year we're going to take a survey for the Tourist Commission. They would like for us to let them know where people come from.
It's a great setting overall. The town of Sunset really steps up and gives a great performance in tidying up the town and just really showcasing all the beautiful flowers and gardens. And it's really a unique event in that it's really it's all about the plants and about what you can do to beautify your home and your gardens. So the families are definitely welcome because it's a great opportunity to teach young children about herbs and gardening and about just about how eating healthy. You can tie in a lot of great things. So the kids really enjoy it. Great art for the gardens, plants, of course, great speakers. The food, of course, is very good here at the Sunset Herb Festival, and it's just a great opportunity.
We're going to have a big round table of experts starting with our county agent, Gerald Roberts, who's the county agent for Lafayette Parish, and probably about 4 or 5 different master gardeners that are expert in their fields. So it's really going to be interesting. We'll be able to answer a lot of questions, and we're going to have a mystery guest this year that I think that everybody's going to really be excited about.
Sunset Garden Club ladies have worked really hard to make this a great event for families. It's a very wholesome event. There's no alcohol sold. There's no live music. You know, you're just enjoying the day, the settings with the beautiful gardens, and the visiting with neighbors and friends. And people just make a day of it. They come to Sunset to get the bargains, to hear the seminars. So it's a fun-filled day.
I think the cold weather's over, so people come to see what they can find to put in their yard to make their yards beautiful. They're very interested in the yard art and just everything we have. And also, we'll have master gardeners here, a panel, to answer your questions.
Let's go way back into when, for World War II, we had victory gardens, and everybody was really having to almost mandate that you have to have a garden. And in this day and age, because of all the eco-friendly surrounding that everybody is now noticing what the pesticides have done to us, that we are going to be destroying our own selves. So now more and more people are learning more about gardening, organics, and anything to do about the pride of harvesting your own crop and not going to the store and getting something that you don't know where it came from or what it was sprayed with. So I think that our part, the master gardeners, is to educate the community, and I'm hoping that a lot of the community will agree with me when I state that educate the community to let everybody know, including children. Right now we have 7 schools in Lafayette Parish that we go into and we teach gardening, and they absolutely love it.
They'll find everything. We have food trucks, We have snowballs, homemade cookies. We have 80 vendors with art craft, yard art, just about anything. Anything you want for a yard, we have it.
We got a variety of herbs, and we also got a few flowering plants, hanging baskets, and we got a planter and some orchids. Aren't these pretty?
Is this the first time for you to come to the Herb Festival?
No, it isn't. It isn't. I've been a couple times before.
What do you think of it?
It's wonderful. It's awesome. Well organized.
We have a variety of different flowering plants. I'm not very familiar with names, but the plants are just beautiful flowers of every color. Just wonderful, wonderful selection, nice people, very helpful. They let you know what you need to do with your plants, sun, shade, watering. Just wonderful, wonderful people here.
How many plants do you have at your home that you bought here at the festival?
A yard full. I live on 3 acres, and I just have flowers and plants all over my yard.
How's the festival grown over the years?
Oh, a lot. I mean, it has just improved every year, and we have more vendors every year, and awesome, awesome plants and yard decorations. It's a great festival.
I got a lot of perennial salvias, a lot of blooming color plants for the sun that are real good spring bloomers and kind of keep blooming through the summer, and just this and that, some odd stuff you can't find everywhere else.
Today we're cooking up fried onions, large jumbo onions, and we sell a bunch of them.
The bloomin' onion is one of the popular attractions here at the festival. Tell us why.
It was the first item that they sold as food items on the festival here. And every year people come back to get them, and we sell more and more every year. Because the crew that behind these bloomin' onions is unreal. They take the onions, they go pick them up at a vegetable place, and they peel them, they core them, and they get everything ready to fry. I mean, the batter, the sauce, everything.
What's the best thing about eating a bloomin' onion?
Oh, it's awesome.
If people come to Sunset and would like to explore more about St. Landry Parish and the town of Sunset, what else is there to offer?
Well, oh, absolutely. But you're in a great opportunity because Sunset is just centrally located within St. Landry Parish. So it's just a jump to go right there to the little town of Grand Coteau. Great antique shopping. A lot of little new venues have opened, as well as here in Sunset. There's numerous artists here, so a lot of great original art, and they both happen to be cultural districts where you get to buy original works of art. They're tax-free. So you want to take advantage of that as well on the day when you're here in Sunset. Of course, we'd love for you to come and stop by the St. Landry Parish Visitor Information Center just up the highway on I-49 at exit 23. And I'm so happy to share that our irises are just starting to bloom. It's a beautiful show out there, and we can direct you to the other communities as well.
If people have questions like more information about tourism in St. Landry Parish, what should they do?
Right. Well, you want to call our toll-free number. We've got 877-948-8004. But probably the easiest way is to go and log on to our website, CajunTravel.com, and you'll see all the information there about the Sunset Herb Fest and other activities taking place in the parish of St. Landry.
We start working really in January, and we go up until May. And then after the festival is over, we don't go back until September and start our meetings. But really, we really get down in January.
People like to eat natural foods, and herbs is such a good seasoning when cooking. You can really cut out a lot of salt and other seasonings with herbs, and people just love it. And most of our vendors sell out.
What's your favorite part of the festival?
I like just meeting all the people and see where they come from. I think it's interesting. And last year we had, they came from all over.
If people have questions like more information, what should they do?
They can call Ms. Vivian Olivier at 337-662-3542 or go to our website, and there's numbers on there, and we'll be happy to assist them in any way we can.
Today we are launching our Louisiana Invest in a Healthy Louisiana campaign to increase the tobacco tax in Louisiana. And so we believe that this is the right mechanism to help decrease a large epidemic in Louisiana that is caused by tobacco-related illnesses and ultimately tobacco.
What are some ways that this bill will get those results?
Well, so this bill increases the current tobacco tax by $1.18, which would bring us to $1.54. $1.54 is the national average, and so we know that research shows that any tax over $1 will increase public health benefits, and so that's why we're here today.
With all the different bills, why are you supporting this one?
So that's a good question. We are a couple reasons. Number one, Representative Ritchie has been a large public health advocate, so he's always introduced legislation to help fight tobacco-related illnesses and to make a public health impact. And then also we really we applaud his efforts to raise it to the national average and not the southern average, to bring us into reality, $1.54. And so we believe that it's time for Louisiana to take it a step forward, and $1.54 is the best way.
Today we were having a press conference for Investing in a Healthy Louisiana, and it's all about the cigarette tax that I have proposed, an increase of $1.18 to bring us to the national average of $1.54.
How exactly will an increase make Louisiana healthier?
I think when you have an increase that's a significant increase, you're going to have a number of people that smoke already. They're going to think about it and quit. And I think you'll have a number of young people who are more price sensitive than us adults never start. So down the road, this will be a healthier state because of it.
Why did you create this bill?
Well, this is not my first time to talk about cigarette taxes, and basically it's because I know the effects of tobacco on myself and on my family. I'm not mad at the tobacco companies. It's a choice we make. It's a bad choice, and some of us get addicted to nicotine, but I think we need to try and make those changes.
With so many different bills about cigarette tax, what makes yours differ and stand out?
I think because I've been there before. I'm not bringing it in at a low number like Mississippi or one of the other states, because I want to see some serious impacts on the health care issues in this state that smoking causes. So I think I'll have a lot of support for this bill.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you all so much for taking the time to come and meet with us for a few minutes. My name is Stasha Rhodes. I am the Louisiana Director of Advocacy for the American Heart Association and a proud member of the Invest in a Healthy Louisiana campaign, which is the initiative that we are here today to launch. The Invest in a Healthy Louisiana campaign is comprised of numerous public health groups spearheading the effort to reduce the burden of tobacco in Louisiana through an increase in the state's tobacco tax. The Invest campaign envisions a healthier Louisiana with fewer children starting to smoke, more adults quitting, and increased revenue for the state. It is a win-win for Louisiana. I'm pleased to have representatives from the advocacy groups that are partners in this campaign. I'm joined by Ryan West of the American Cancer Society, Jennifer Kofer of the American Lung Association, Claudia Rodas with the Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids, and Tanya Moore with the Louisiana Campaign for Tobacco-Free Living. We also have with us Dr. Mitchell Lertzman, who is a vascular surgeon in Lafayette, who has been tireless in his efforts to speak out on these issues and to educate the public. And of course, we are all very, very proud to have with us Representative Harold Ritchie, who is the author of House Bill 119, which we are all here to support. With Louisiana having the nation's 7th highest smoking rate among the states and the 2nd lowest cigarette tax, the need for responsible action is clear. Presently in Louisiana, some 4,700 kids every year begin to smoke. More than 7,000 Louisianans will die this year from smoking. And nearly 100,000 kids alive today will ultimately die prematurely from smoking if we don't change the landscape now. In addition, smoking directly causes $1.9 billion in annual healthcare costs to the state, of which more than $800 million of that comes from the state Medicaid program. The mission of the Invest in a Healthy Louisiana campaign is to help enact a significant increase in the state's cigarette tax. This in itself will help to convince people to reduce or stop smoking, and bring in desperately needed revenue to the state's budget. An increase of $1.18 on each cigarette pack is a wise investment in Louisiana's kids and in Louisiana's future. Today we are proud to have with us Representative Harold Ritchie, who will talk more about why he decided to author this legislation. Representative Ritchie.
Thank you, Stasha. It's a pleasure for me to be here with y'all this morning as we kick off this campaign. As you know, this is not the first time we've brought a cigarette tax. This is not our first rodeo. But this time we've got a lot more folks that want to be in the rodeo. You know, the governor has mentioned increasing the cigarette tax. Different members of the legislature have different bills and everything. But I've brought this bill because it will bring us up to the national average. It's an investment not just because we need the money, but because we need the improved health care in our state. That figure will keep so many young people from starting to smoke. It'll help some of us that are already smoking to quit. It'll be a big enough increase to do that. The governor has talked about one, but you know, that number is more in line with Mississippi and what they do. I don't know why we want to be like Mississippi. You know, Texas has the last increase they had, they went from 41 to I think $1.41. That's an investment that will help people stop smoking and will keep young people from smoking. You know, a lot of states have a lot higher taxes than we do. You know, there's one out there for $4.35, but that's not the increase I'm after. I'm after one that will, you know, bring us increased revenue, but will also bring us increased health care benefits. As most of you know, I'm a smoker. Started when I was a teenager, back when we had the Marlboro Man riding off into the sunset, and we always wanted to be like the Marlboro Man. Well, now that I've gotten to this age, I can see myself riding off into the sunset, but it's probably going to be on a little three-wheel scooter with a little oxygen bottle in between my legs as I go. And that's not a pretty picture. Nicotine, not only all the damage that it does, it's very addictive, and it's one of the hardest things to quit. So I think we need this incentive. This is a win-win-win for everybody in the state of Louisiana. It'll improve our health care. It'll raise money for the state. And, you know, it's something that us politicians can vote for when you look at the number of folks around this state that are willing to vote for even a higher cigarette tax than what I proposed. I'll be glad to hang around and answer any questions you have. We have some other speakers that'll tell you how bad smoking is and the effects. But if you just read on the side of a pack of cigarettes, the Surgeon General's warning and what they have to put on the side of a pack of cigarettes, it causes cancer, emphysema, heart trouble, and all of those I've seen not only through my work at the funeral home, but personally. My grandfather died with emphysema at the age of 67. My father died at 53 after his second heart attack. So it's personal to me. I'm not mad at the tobacco companies. I just see where we need to make these changes and help all of our people. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Ritchie. We are all extremely proud of your leadership consistently on this issue. Now we will hear from a vascular surgeon in Lafayette, Dr. Mitchell Lertzman.
Thank you, Stasha. Good morning. My name is Dr. Mitchell Lertzman. I'm a cardiovascular surgeon in Lafayette. In over 30 years of clinical practice, I have been doing battle with the effects of tobacco abuse. I have saved people from heart attacks. I have prevented strokes. I have been fortunate enough to have cured many people of lung cancer. I have also lost my share. And far and away, the most common thread in my patients is cigarettes and tobacco abuse. Almost 400,000 people a year have died as a result of tobacco abuse since the Surgeon General's original report in 1964. There are over 4,000 chemical compounds in cigarettes, approximately 400 of which are known carcinogens. They cause cancer. They have been proved to cause cancer. Those compounds in combination with nicotine cause acceleration of plaque formation, damage to the delicate lining of arteries, blockages in arteries that lead to heart attack, stroke, and limb loss. Smokers have double the risk of fatal heart attacks, 4 times the risk of dying from esophageal cancer, and 14 times the risk of dying from lung or throat or mouth cancer, which in my opinion are nearly preventable in the absence of smoking. Now, look to who has been taken away from us, among others, and not including family and friends, who've been taken away from us all too early. People, among others, Edward R. Murrow, Humphrey Bogart, to George Harrison, Peter Jennings, Johnny Carson, Jim Finks, Levon Helm, Ruth Fertel, and Stephen Ambrose, all at the hand of cigarettes. So how does this all get started, and how does that affect us here today? Almost all new smokers are under the age of 21. The tobacco companies need about 3,000 new smokers per day to start smoking on a regular basis to get them addicted, and to maintain the tobacco company's profits. Representative Ritchie mentioned the Marlboro Man. Just to show you how impressionable children are, when the Marlboro Man and Joe Camel were introduced way back when, youth smoking increased by 77%. Smoking costs us in higher insurance rates and lower productivity in the workplace. Tobacco use and secondhand smoke costs Louisiana between $2 and $3 billion per year in healthcare costs and lower productivity in the workplace. So what if everybody stopped smoking now, today? First of all, on a personal basis, I would still be busy for 10 years. But that's not the point. It's for the general health of the population. 20 minutes after one stops smoking, your pulse and blood pressure return to normal. In 2 weeks to 3 months, lung function starts to improve. And by 9 months, the cough and shortness of breath will start to improve. And 1 year after quitting, your risk of coronary artery disease is now half of that of an everyday smoker. So starting today, by advocating passage of House Bill 119, we can begin to break that cycle of illness and death. This is not a tax issue, as some would say. This is not a big government issue, nor the so-called nanny state telling us all what to do and how to live. This is a public health issue. It is an issue of saving the lives of our friends, family members, and children. And as I said at the outset, I've seen far too much damage, infirmity, and death in my time. And while we've made great strides in Louisiana, there is a lot more work to do, and it starts with you right here, right now, today. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dr. Lertzman. The evidence is clear. It's time for Louisiana to take action now. We believe House Bill 119 is the right mechanism to get us, put us in the right place in Louisiana and to help us in this public health epidemic in Louisiana.
And where can people get more information?
We have a website. It is investcampaign.org.
And where can people get more information or show their support for this bill?
I think just by contacting their legislator. finding out, who your rep is, who your senator is. Let them know, because, the politics of it, surveys show that 80% of the folks, would vote for a $1.25 tax on cigarettes, an increase. So let them know that it's an easy vote for them to make. You won't be mad at them.
With an average of 80 to 100 cats a month to care for, running a feline rescue center doesn't come cheap.
Okay, are you ready for some food and some water? Are you ready?
We have to provide food, litter, medicine, spaying and neutering for all the cats before they go home, so that costs us a lot of money.
So when Cat Haven's executive director, Wendy Decker, recently found out that there was a state refund her business was entitled to, she was thrilled and surprised by how simple it was to claim it.
It was very easy. I just went online, I printed out the form, and just filled out, it was one page, very little information required, attached the deck page from my insurance policy, and that was it. Put it in the mail.
If you pay property insurance in Louisiana, you probably pay the Louisiana Citizens Property Insurance Corporation assessment as part of your bill each year.
Not only homeowners, but renters, mobile homes, commercial properties, skyscrapers, as well as corner grocery stores. Every property gets assessed 3.5% each year to finish paying off the bonds that Citizens had to issue to pay their Katrina liability, $1.2 billion bond issue.
The amount you are assessed can be found on the declaration page or deck page of your property insurance policy. There are 3 ways to claim the refund: as a tax credit, online, or by filling out a paper form.
Although these refunds and rebates are available year-round, the easy way to get the money that you're entitled to under the law is as a dollar-for-dollar tax credit against your state tax liability.
You can also claim the refunds online at the Department of Revenue website, www.revenue.louisiana.gov. Or you can fill out the paper forms, which are available on both the Department of Insurance and Department of Revenue websites.
Access a simple one-page form with 4 questions: name, address, policy number, and the amount of your assessment. Attach your deck page, mail it in, or electronically send it in to the Department of Revenue and get a check back in the mail.
If you have more than one property for which you were assessed, you can use the supplement form to claim your rebate for all properties on one form, attach the declaration page for each of the properties, and submit it to the Department of Revenue. You can claim rebates going back 4 years, but the clock is ticking because after 4 years, the opportunity to claim the money expires.
It's unfortunate, but 53% of that money, year in and year out, goes unclaimed, and then after 4 years reverts to the general fund of the state.
This has been the Louisiana Hometown Network. If you have questions about this program, call us at Hometown Productions.